What's up, people? Another close loss. A thriller that Florida almost won against Missouri. Boy, how things have changed. As this is the Gators final report at the Voice of College Football. Before we start, you guys need to subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure we're doing that across all the channels. Mark Rogers Show, that goes on tonight, later today, or excuse me, later tonight, obviously. The Georgia Show, Iowa, whoever. If you have a favorite college football team, there is a channel more likely that is on at the Voice of College Football. Make sure you go to click at the Voice of College Football, click featured, click the shows, like and subscribe so we can continue to grow at the Voice of College Football for Mark Rogers. Okay. Florida, I don't know. Where should we start? Start with a positive. The defense played better. I did not think Florida's defense was going to show up. I thought Beatty, I call him Batty. I thought he was going to run over all over Florida. He really didn't get rolling until late the third quarter. I know that statistically he had I think he finished right around 150 yards. He almost had 30 touches, but he really didn't have anything going big play wise until late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and then what he did in overtime. Missouri misses the field goal with just over a minute. Dan Mullen has the ball, 1:04 left at his own 30. You need to go 40 yards to kick a field goal to win the game. And Emory Jones goes handoff, 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 punt. That pretty much needs to tell you anything that happened. And that tells you everything what's wrong with Dan Mullen, how much confidence he has with Emory Jones, how much confidence he has in the offense. He basically just threw the white flag up. He was the trainer in the boxing match that threw in the towel and just said, "Now we're playing not to lose. We're not playing to win. We're playing not to lose." It's pretty simple to me. And if you remember, Dan Mullen did the same thing when we played Kentucky late in the first half, except Florida had 1:55 left with I think 2 or 3 timeouts. And what they do, run. Didn't take it. Didn't even attempt to throw it. Didn't attempt to take a chunk shot. Nothing. Just, let's take to the half. We're good where we want to be. And that was that. And then Florida loses by 7. You have a chance to win the game and you didn't do anything. That's inexcusable. Throughout the show, I wrote some notes. A guy that's been on the show here, Terry Norvell, he's the owner of College Sports Today. He hosts a show with 2 guys by the name of Shane Matthews and Steve Spurrier. And Steve Spurrier dropped I'm not going to say a bombshell because, it was pretty big what he said about Dan Mullen, what he heard and what's going around the Florida facility. Because remember, his offices are right by Scott Strickland and Dan Mullen. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit after we talk a little bit about the Florida game. But Florida's defense played well. No sign of Anthony Richardson. Why? I don't know. Again, second week in a row where he's been healthy, he's been able to play, he's been dressed, and no sign at all whatsoever. I don't even know any of the stats that Florida had. It doesn't really matter because, you score 1 touchdown in 4 quarters. As I'm trying to pull it up after I say it doesn't matter. Your defense holds the other team to 16 points, and Missouri team that's not that good. And Missouri is bowl eligible before Florida is. Florida finishes the 2021 season with 2 SEC wins. Think about that. Florida went from almost beating Alabama in the SEC title last year. Florida went from the first month. This is the Florida team that almost beat Alabama and also beat Tennessee pretty good. They beat Tennessee by 20. I think it was 24 to be exact. I think it was like 38-14, something like that. This is the same Florida team. And this is the same Florida team that was double-digit favorites against LSU, against Samford that didn't cover, against South Carolina. And there were 9.5-point favorites tonight. It depended on when you saw the line. It opened at 7.5. I saw it. I got it at 9.5. I bet Missouri outright because because I know Florida's not going to win by 9.5. I bet Missouri went outright, got a little jump. Not the kind of guy to brag or bring attention to myself. And then you were an 8.5-point favorite against Kentucky. That pretty much shows you what Vegas thinks. They thought Florida was big favorites against all those games, and you lost all those games again, except for Stanford. Dan Mullen didn't talk after the game. The press conference is always done through Zoom, and then so for the people that don't know, that never use Zoom, you join, you log in, and there's a link. You click the link, and you usually mute yourself. Well, apparently someone in the media didn't mute themselves, and there was TV noise in the background, and Dan Mullen was there for like 30 seconds and then just left. So I think, and I don't really blame him with everything that's going on. He'll just have to answer more questions come Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock with this presser. So yes, thanks Jeff for dropping that comment. So Mullen, that was his press conference. It was a minute. It was a total S show, and then he just left. Pretty much what Florida's season's been so far. Eli Drinkwitz, let me take a step back. If you remember last year when Florida played Missouri on Halloween, Dan Mullen dressed up as Darth Vader on Halloween weekend after Florida. Remember the brawl that happened at halftime, and Dan Mullen was yelling at the coaches on Missouri and the players at Missouri, and security and police had to split them up. Dan Mullen goes to the press conference after Florida beats Missouri pretty handedly, and he dresses like Darth Vader, which is very odd. And people that I hear did not like that. Eli Drinkwitz, if you know anything about him, if you ever listen to him, talk on SEC Network and whatever, he's very playful guy. If you take shots, he can take it, and he's one of the funnier guys. Very, very underrated. Everybody wants to talk about Lane Kiffin. Eli Drinkwitz is up there with his humor. And Eli Drinkwitz came out after the game. He ended the post-game press conference by putting on his hood, whipping out a plastic lifesaver, and said, "May the force be with you." That's hilarious. That's hilarious from Eli Drinkwitz after what Dan Mullen did being Darth Vader, and now Missouri getting the better laugh and beating Florida on 2-point conversion in overtime, 24-23. So my thought last week, of course, we can talk about the game. I don't think the game really matters. The main storyline is obviously Dan Mullen and everything that is around him. My thought last week after the Stanford game, there was a lot of talk. We'll take one step back. After the South Carolina game, I heard a lot of talk that, well, it's going to depend on the last 3 games of Dan Mullen. If he's 3-0, his job is good. If he's 2-1, well, it depends if he loses to Florida State or Missouri. But if he might have his job there. If he loses to Missouri and Florida State, his job will be gone. I didn't agree with that at all. And that was weeks ago. I thought your mind was made up before, or excuse me, your mind was made up after that South Carolina game. If you're the administration and you're Scott Strickland, do you keep Dan Mullen or do you want to not keep Dan Mullen? You want to move on. After everything that's transpired, I think it's pretty self-explanatory that both parties just need to go. Dan Mullen doesn't care to be there, my opinion. And for administration, I don't think wants Dan Mullen to be there anymore. This is the same time Dan Mullen just got an extension to be paid $7.5 million each year. And he got this extension in the summer. Guys, I see your comments. I want to talk about Dan Mullen, and I want to say this from what I heard today on radio with Matt Hayes and what Spurrier said, and then I'll get to your guys' comments. So this is where everything started to unravel. This is what Matt Hayes said, national college football writer. He's covered Spurrier, covered Urban Meyer, wrote for the Florida Times-Union in Jacksonville, writes now for Saturday Down South, and he hosts the show XL Primetime on 1010XL, the flagship station for the Gators. Matt Hayes mentioned what started the unraveling with Florida wasn't the LSU game. It wasn't the shoe throwing. It was when Dan Mullen got that recruiting violation. And it's ironic because Dan Mullen obviously is not a good recruiter. And obviously we're seeing that. Dan Mullen broke a recruiting violation when you could not have face-to-face contact with anybody during COVID. I think it was from March of 2020 all the way to, I think it was June of this year. So March of 2020 to June of 2021, you could not have any face-to-face interaction. Players could not come to the have an official visit, and you could not go to have in-home visits. Dan Mullen went all the way out to Oregon, of all places, took a plane out there. It's for a 5-star player, and you can't do that. Now, keep in mind, Florida has not had a recruiting violation since before I was born. I think the last time they had one was when Emmitt Smith played in the late 80s. So that happens. Dan Mullen didn't really. He's like, I don't have to explain myself, and that's where the tension began between the administration, Scott Strickland, and Dan Mullen. Steve Spurrier, who is on College Sports Today with Terry Norvell. Terry Norvell's been on the show a couple of times after a couple of Gator games. Steve Spurrier said this. Now, keep in mind, Steve Spurrier, for anybody that doesn't know, won a Heisman Trophy, coached Florida to Florida's first national title, took them to Providence, and has made Florida what they are today pretty much, if you don't know. Steve Spurrier also the guy that has an office in Florida's football facility across from Dan Mullen and Scott Strickland. So use that as the backdrop. Steve Spurrier said, quote, on this show, College Sports Today with Terry Norvell. Steve Spurrier, nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody is talking about it. I think it depends on what happens in these next 2 games, Missouri and Florida State. Think about that. Nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody is talking about it. Basically saying, yeah, he's not going to be here for long. If you remember what Jeremy Foley said, the former athletic director before Scott Strickland, he said, what happened, what needs to be done eventually needs to be done immediately. Also, so that's one snippet. After the Georgia game this year, this is all from Matt Hayes. This is what he talked about on the show this morning. After the Georgia game, on Sunday, I guess it is, Dan Mullen had a meeting with the team, and he lit into them. I don't know what he said, but he lit into them. This is what sources close to Florida told Matt Hayes. And there's a lot of upperclassmen on Florida's team. You have your COVID seniors, your 6th-year seniors, your 5th-year seniors, your 4-year guys, and then juniors that are going to leave for the NFL next year. So you have a lot of upperclassmen. And apparently there's a lot of Dan Mullen lit into them. Players pushed back. Dan Mullen apparently broke the podium and walked and stormed out. Apparently that's what happened. Mark Long asked him the following presser, did this happen? And he said, of course not. This didn't happen, yada, yada, yada. Obviously he's not going to admit it. So that happens on Sunday. The presser was Monday, and then Florida has the performance it did against South Carolina. And then if you remember what South Carolina was at post-game, what Dan Mullen said, we had a good practice all week, yada, yada, yada. And if you know anything about football, if you go out and you play a game and it's pitiful, that's because you didn't have a good week of practice, whatever it is. So that happened. And then you look at recruiting right now. Jimbo Fisher has the #1 recruiting class. Looks like he will at A&M. And then you trail Georgia. And you trail Alabama. Miami has a better recruiting class than Florida right now. Florida can't get their guys in state. The last I saw last week, Florida has 4 guys in the state of Florida. 4. In the top 50 in the state of Florida. You know, the hotbed for recruiting. Texas, California, Florida. And Mullen can't recruit. Mullen can't get these guys. Also, another thing. One big coaching change that happened in the offseason that not a lot of people have talked about in the media was when Brian Johnson left Florida. When Brian Johnson left Florida, Matt Hayes said that again, I trust him because I interned on the show with him 2 years ago. If he says something, there's a lot of truth to it. He has a lot of insight. He has a lot of sources, and whenever he says stuff, it usually comes out to be true. When Brian Johnson left Florida for the NFL to go be the Eagles QB coach, Matt Hayes said that people tell him that Brian Johnson was the only guy on that staff that could check Dan Mullen's ego. He was the only guy that could tell Dan Mullen no. If Dan Mullen wanted to do something, Brian Johnson said no, it didn't happen. And no one else is like that on the staff, apparently. Brian Johnson leaves, and you bring in a guy, Garrett McGee, who, from what Matt Hayes said, McGee probably would not have a Power 5 job if it weren't for Florida. He was with Arkansas in 2011. He came from Missouri. He's coached receivers, coached offense. And Brian Johnson, it seems to be eventually, he's going to be the next hotshot guy in the NFL. He's going to get a head coaching job in a couple of years. Again, this is not my opinion. This is what Matt Hayes has been saying. So figure all that in together. You have the recruiting violation that Dan Mullen did when he didn't care. That caused friction between the administration and the AD at Florida, Scott Strickland. You have Steve Spurrier said, quote, nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody is talking about it. I think it depends on what happens in these next 2 games. A guy that has offices in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium across from Dan Mullen and Scott Strickland. And by the way, something else I forgot to mention. The host of the show, Terry, did not ask Steve Spurrier what his comment was or what he thinks about Dan Mullen and the coaching situation. He just said it. And what he was asked, he was talking about the game yesterday on the show, and he just blatantly said it. Now, if you guys know anything about Spurrier, he coached before I was even thought of. I was born in '98. Steve Spurrier is always well calculated. Steve Spurrier just doesn't blow smoke. When he says something, he's either taking a shot at somebody. Florida State, Georgia, free shoes, one hang half 100, and he just said that. So there's a lot of truth to that, which is very surprising. So that's the biggest thing that I wanted to get off my chest. All of that stuff. I see you guys dropping a ton of comments. I promise I will get to them, but I wanted to start the show off with that. As you can see, this is the Gators Final Report. I'm the host, Dylan Denmark. You can follow me via the Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. Make sure we're liking and subscribing to all the YouTube channels at the Voice of College Football, whether it be Iowa, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, the SEC channel, so on and so forth. You can catch it all. Click at the Voice of College Football's YouTube channel, click featured, and boom, a lot of channels will pop up. So if you're just joining us, I don't think the game really mattered. When it pertains to Dan Mullen, your mind was kind of already made up before. And this kind of speaks more truth to what needs to be done. And I think Dan Mullen wants to leave Florida, and I think Florida wants to move on from Dan Mullen. Give him the $12 million buyout or come to an agreement on what you want to do. If you want to pay it out, whatever, through 6-8 years, if you want to, lower the $12 million, whether, Dan Mullen leaves to go take the USC job or if Dan Mullen finds an NFL job, which Dan Mullen could fit the NFL, but his personality doesn't fit the NFL. If you look at any NFL coach, does any NFL coach have a personality like Dan Mullen? The answer is no. So, that's that. That's the backdrop, as I'll get to your guys' comments. Yep. Yeah, Cody. Florida does miss the old Urban Meyer days. That's definitely a fact. Roger Greenberg, Dan Mullen has failed us too many times. Yeah. The biggest thing with Mullen failing Florida, season's lost. It's 5 wins. You have 2 wins. Let me look at the stat. I saw it. I couldn't. This was crazy. Florida finishes. The only 2 SEC teams they beat were Vandy and Tennessee. And, oh, by the way, had they not played Tennessee at the beginning of the year, Florida would get smoked by Tennessee now. Dan Mullen is 0-7 in one-score games in the last 2 seasons. Is 2-9 in the last 11 games against Power 5 teams. Went 2-4 in the SEC or against the SEC East this season. 2-4, the only 2 wins. Vandy and Tennessee. Went 0-4 on the road in the SEC. And that's another thing. Emory Jones had not played well in any game on the road. He didn't play that good against Kentucky, nothing special. He got benched against LSU when AR-15 came in. South Carolina was pitiful. The guys quit on Dan Mullen. And then tonight. And all those things have happened this year. Florida finished with their worst record in the SEC since 1979. If you're old enough to remember, Florida went 0-10-1. Man, crazy to think that Florida went from the LSU game when LSU, you're going into that game, you're 8-1. It's pretty much an exhibition before Florida plays in the playoff game in the SEC championship the following week. LSU has 55 scholarship players with a true freshman quarterback that had never gotten a start. LSU beats Florida. Everybody talks about Marco Wilson and what happened with that situation why Florida lost. Florida lost the game because they weren't prepared, because Kyle Pitts was healthy enough to be played and did not play. And they didn't have a good game plan, and they were looking ahead to Alabama. And then the Alabama game happens. Florida has 3 stops, can't get off the field because of penalties. That's 17 points that Alabama went on to score had Florida gotten those 3 stops that they should have. Lose the game by 6. You go to the Oklahoma game, the bowl game. You tell in the press conference, you tell the media, yeah, that's not the same Florida team. The same Florida team that you're now coaching now. First month of the season's good. Defense looks like they're making strides. They had a slow start against Alabama, but then they rallied back. They were physical. Florida averaged just under 400 yards rushing a game. And then boom, Kentucky happens. LSU happens. Georgia obviously is Georgia. And then all the wheels fell off against South Carolina. You give up more than half 100 against Samford. And then tonight, Missouri. Missouri team that had a great running back, the best running back in the SEC this season. I wouldn't say great. Forgive me if I'm just talking out loud. Missouri's running back Beatty is one of the best in the SEC, and he didn't really get rolling until late in the second half. And Florida did a good job of containing him, but he eventually got loose. And defense, what was shocking to me, I didn't expect them to play well. They held Missouri to 16 points in the first half, but Florida's offense couldn't do anything. And then it was ironic earlier in the week. PFF, Pro Football Focus, rated Dameon Pierce the highest rated running back in college football. That same running back from the University of Florida has only gotten more than 8 carries once this season. Let me see how many carries he had today, because I don't know, he didn't get much. Let me see. Yeah, and this is something I mentioned after the Tennessee game, and Dameon Pierce wasn't getting the ball at all. I feel like he should have been getting the ball more. Dameon Pierce finished with 7 carries, 7 yards. Best running back. Your best tailback. Pretty much had the same carries as Naquan Wright and Malik Davis. That's coaching. Mullen in his 4th grade playbook. That's pretty funny. That's pretty clever. Yeah, Jed, I saw this. Joey Ivey, former Florida player, defensive line. He said this a week ago that Mullen's throwing the season. He has a sort of inside info. Yeah. He didn't play under Mullen. If he had played under Mullen, I would take it with a little more truth. But I mean, I'm sure he still talks to some guys that are still on the team, possibly. But yeah, I did see that when Joey Ivy said that last week. Kenny says Florida needs to have a coaching change that can recruit and have a killer instinct. You need a head coach that can recruit, and you need a staff that needs to recruit. And the next O-line coach that Florida gets needs to be an elite recruiter because Florida needs to make up everything that the offensive line have not been able to do and go out and get big guys when it comes to recruiting. Yeah, so you took the words out of my mouth. What's it matter? Only 7 touches and a touchdown. And if you saw the reaction with Pierce when he scored that touchdown, that dude was fired up. That's what happens when you're a really good player and you don't you don't see the ball much. So Florida next week plays for the Toilet Bowl. Both Florida and Florida State are 5-6. This is gonna be a thrilling game. Noon Eastern, ESPN. You'll definitely want to tune in. Gee, what bowl game would Florida play in? Like the Gator Bowl, or is that too good of a bowl for Florida? I don't even know what. Jeez, the last time Florida went 6-6 was 2011. They played in the Gator Bowl. That was the Urban Meyer Bowl, if you remember. Florida was a year removed from Urban Meyer, and there was a lot of rumors that Urban Meyer was going to Florida or Ohio State. And if you remember, Urban Meyer was supposed to call that game for ESPN because he called play-by-play for ESPN and was in the booth. And was supposed to call that game, and he didn't. And then obviously he went to Ohio State. Roland X drops the comment. Gainesville has a toxic reputation, so wondering who our third choice is this time. Yeah, I don't know. I think the decision we made next Sunday after Florida State because you need a guy ASAP because Florida still has a signing day in mid-December. So you got to go out immediately. Whoever you hire has to immediately hit the recruiting trail. But I just keep seeing, that Florida should be fired mid-season. You can have that opinion. People forget Dan Mullen calls the plays for the offense. So if Dan Mullen left Florida, just say after the South Carolina game, and you have the last 3 games, who calls the plays for Florida? I'm not saying that, it can be worse and whatever. He's been the play caller all year. Had you still had Brian Johnson on staff, that wouldn't be an issue. I mean, Billy Gonzalez, maybe. I mean, how much faith would you have in Billy Gonzalez if you fired Dan Mullen midseason? Jed drops the comment. I saw this earlier. Chizik as head coach, Steele as DC. I believe Gene Chizik when I see it. I know it's just rumblings and rumors. I think you said at the beginning of the first comments that you said a booster told you something along those lines. I don't know. We'll see. I will say this though. I'm not old enough to remember the process from the head coaching process from when Urban Meyer was hired at Florida. But Florida has not got the number one guy, the number one choice in quite a while. If you go back to 2017, after Florida let go of McElwain, Scott Frost and Chip Kelly were the first 2 guys. Kelly goes to UCLA. Frost goes to Nebraska. And Dan Mullen was the third choice. And it wasn't like a huge splash hire. McElwain. I don't remember exactly. I don't think McElwain was Florida's top choice. And he was expected to change Florida's offense. Remember, he was the OC at Alabama when they won one of their national titles. And then he went to Colorado State to be a head coach before coming to Florida. And then before McElwain was Muschamp. And Muschamp was supposed to be this up-and-coming coach. If you're old enough to remember, Muschamp was going to be the guy in waiting for Texas because Matt Brown was expected to leave soon. He was the defensive coordinator, and then Muschamp leaves and comes to Florida, expected to bring some fire. Had a successful second season, 2012, when Florida went 11-1. The only loss was to Georgia, and then they got rolled in the Louisville game. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, so I'm seeing a couple comments about Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin. If Scott Strickland is the AD, I don't think he touches Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin just because of the baggage they come with. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's right and wrong, but I don't think I don't think Scott Strickland will touch those guys, and I don't think the boosters and the administration want what comes with Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin from what they've done previously. If it were me, I would have an issue getting Lane Kiffin. I think the guy's matured. I think the guy has came a long way from what he was. Lane Kiffin, he's matured obviously off the field with everything that he used to say from talking out off the football field. But Lane Kiffin was always the guy that was so dug into his playbook and trying to impress everybody with how his offensive mind and with experience and with maturity, he's calmed down. He's gotten a lot better. Offensive guys that are that are great at what they do, calling plays. Sometimes they get so into trick plays and gadgets and formations when they don't just go, okay, first down, I have to have a second down play ready if it's second and short, second and long, second and medium, and have that play ready. But I don't think playing to that. I think Lane Kiffin will get a big job. I don't think it's at Florida. Lane Kiffin, to me, I would say he would be the number one guy. But if because Mel Tucker's staying at Michigan State, obviously with his contract he just got, Mario Cristobal would probably be the best guy if he leaves Oregon. But Lane Kiffin is in that top three. When it comes to coaches being available, getting the next big job. Yeah, tonight he played not to lose, and Missouri played to win in overtime. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it pretty much showed how much Dan Mullen had in his offense. When you have a 104 left in the game, Mullen has, I can't remember if they had a timeout or not, or two. But Mullen has the ball at your own 30. You need to get about 40, 45 yards to kick a field goal, roughly, and you don't attempt to throw the ball. And all you do is run, and run. That's pitiful. If you're old enough to remember, Florida did that back in week 3 when – no, it wasn't week 3. It was week 5 when Florida lost to Kentucky. Into the first half, 1:55 to play. Emory Jones was the quarterback. AR couldn't play. Richardson, because Richardson had the concussion. Oh, no. He had a hamstring issue from the South Florida game. And, it cost you. Tied at 16, and you can win the game. Here you go, and you don't even try to. That's coaching. So what's it matter drops this comment. Is it a toxic environment? Maybe the environment is why they've had so much success in the past. I think this is what's happened. I think Dan Mullen. I don't think Dan Mullen cares to be at Florida anymore, and this is why. I think Dan Mullen was expected to leave to get a better job last year. If you remember, there was a lot of rumblings about him taking an NFL job with the Cowboys, and I forget what the other teams were in the NFL. But I think Dan Mullen was expected to get that NFL job And I would guess that he was all in on it. And then once he was all in and then didn't get it, and then had to come back to Florida, everything that happened at the end of the year when it came to the LSU game and not executing well, the horrible defense, and Mullen not making a decision to fire Grantham and the defensive staff, the post-game press conference after Oklahoma, when Oklahoma, your guys all didn't play, your Kadarius Toney, your Kyle Pitts, so on and so forth, they didn't play. And then you say after the game, that's not the Florida team. Meanwhile, that team that went against Oklahoma are the same guys that are playing right now, all those underclassmen. You kind of set the precedent. I feel like it's kind of carried its way, and Mullen's attitude hasn't been the same. And I think that it's going to be – I think it's mutual. I think Mullen doesn't want to stay in Florida, and Florida doesn't want Mullen. As weird as it is to say when Mullen just got an extension in the summer. I see a couple of head coaching comments. Kevin Carter as a CEO type, hire his staff. Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin's been jumping around for the head coaching spot. Yeah, I don't know what Florida will do. Honestly, it's 100% up in the air. Again, if you're just joining us, Steve Spurrier yesterday on a show, College Sports Day, with Terry Norvell, who Terry's been on this postgame show, the Gators Final Report. As you can see, this is Dylan Denmark. You can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. This is at the Voice of College Football. Steve Spurrier said, and he wasn't asked this, he just said this. And if you know anything about Spurrier, Spurrier is well calculated. And Spurrier just doesn't blow smoke. He said, quote, "Nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody is talking about it. I think it depends on what happens in these next two games." Steve Spurrier, a guy that played at the University of Florida, won a Heisman, coached at Florida, took them to what they are now for a decade, took them to national titles, coached them to a second Heisman Trophy, and makes them relevant. So you can take that as a backdrop. Basically meaning Mullen's not going to be there for long. And then after the Georgia game, I'll listen to Matt Hayes on 1010XL, flagship station for the Florida Gators in Jacksonville. I interned on this show 2 summers ago. If Matt Hayes says something, there's a lot of truth to it. Matt Hayes said after the Georgia game this season, Dan Mullen had a team meeting, and there were a lot of players that pushed back against him because Florida has a heavy upperclassmen team with 6-year seniors with COVID, 5th-year seniors redshirt, and obviously your 4-year guys. Mullen didn't like it. I don't know if they bickered or if they pushed back. Apparently, rumor has it, Dan Mullen broke the podium and stormed out. And then he was asked the following presser, the following Monday, that he didn't do that stuff. Obviously, he did it. That was Sunday. The following week was the South Carolina game. So that was what I started the beginning of the show with, talking about everything around the Florida Gators and Dan Mullen, because everything that's built up is it started off the field with a recruiting violation, him meeting face-to-face with a recruit that he knew he shouldn't have. Goes to the season. You don't beat LSU when they have 55 scholarship players. Your team didn't show up because they were looking ahead to Alabama. Then you can't get it stopped defensively. You don't show up against Oklahoma. You don't fire Todd Grantham and the defensive staff after the Oklahoma game when it was pretty evident that they weren't going to stay long. And if you wanted to do anything and win a national title, you had to get rid of those guys. Mullen didn't. The first month of the season, everything was well. You almost beat Alabama. You beat what looks like now a pretty good Tennessee team, and then Kentucky happens. And then LSU happens. Georgia. and South Carolina happens. Well, the team meeting where there was a lot of confrontation between the players and Mullen. The team meeting, South Carolina game happens following the team meeting. Samford, you give up half 100, and then tonight. Kiffin likely to go to Miami. I don't think so. I don't think he will. That was from Roland X. Yeah, 0-2-1 for the first time since '79. It's Florida's worst SEC record since the late '70s. Only won 2 games in the SEC against Tennessee and Vandy. Yeah, also another thing, if you're just joining us, Jed drops the comment talking about Rex Grossman from the Spurrier days, and maybe the current team needs to channel Brian Johnson. Yeah, so everything I just said about 2 minutes ago with the team unraveling, the recruiting violation that caused tension between the administration and Mullen, and also Brian Johnson leaving. Brian Johnson, from what I've heard on radio from guys that know the Florida football program well, Brian Johnson was the only guy that could tell Dan Mullen no. He was the only guy that could talk to him, and Dan Mullen would listen, and Dan Mullen would check his ego. Brian Johnson moves on to the NFL, goes to the Eagles. He's the quarterback coach. Apparently, he's going to be an NFL head coach in a couple of years. He'll be the next, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, eventually. And since then, your recruiting hasn't been what it was because Brian Johnson was the best recruiter, and also the quarterback developing, or the offense as a whole, really. Yes, Dan Mullen's the quarterback coach, and he coaches them, but also you also have to have a staff that helps with you, and it just hasn't been well. If Brian Johnson were probably still on staff, you probably ask the question: would Anthony Richardson just be playing? Would he have been playing since the Kentucky game and never sat out since? Who knows? Who knows if Johnson was the guy? Would AR be the guy all the way? Because I think the only reason Emory Jones starts is because of I think Mullen is falling under that Kirby Smart loyalty with Jake Fromm. I use the analogy. Kirby Smart didn't start Fields over Fromm because Kirby Smart was he couldn't get over that Jake Fromm took him to a national title the year before, and he won all those games the following year, and he couldn't get over that. When in every other position, Kirby Smart plays the best guy. Dan Mullen and Kirby Smart did that because of loyalty. With Dan Mullen in this era where you can transfer, you can go wherever you want. Emory Jones stayed in Florida. He stayed behind Felipe Franks, and then he sat behind Kyle Trask. And I don't know what he feels, but I feel like he owes him. I'm not agreeing with this, but I think that he's been in the program for 4 years. I think Emory Jones lost his gamesmanship, and Florida should be rolling with Anthony Richardson, the better guy who's the generational talent. In a season that's been lost after the Georgia game, you just got to look to next season, and Emory Jones is not going to be your future in AR is. Yeah, defense played really well. I did not expect that tonight. I thought Beatty, I call him Batty because he's a bad man. Beatty from Missouri, I thought he was going to run all over Florida. I didn't think Florida was going to want to tackle, kind of like how they did against Samford in the first half, and kind of like they did against South Carolina. But they woke up this week. It looked like the defense probably, I would assume, had a good practice all week, unlike they've had after the Georgia game. But yeah, and you can't score points. I mean, all you had to do was score more than 17 in regulation. You win this game. And 3 field goals and a touchdown. Dameon Pierce, your best running back, gets 7 carries, 7 yards. That's the same story that continues week to week. You don't play Anthony Richardson, same thing every single week. Let me see who got the ball on the outside. Copeland, leading receiver, 102 yards, 8 catches. Malik Davis, 4 for 46, and everybody else was kind of 1 or 2. Gamble, the only tight end, had 3 catches. And that's been another thing that's been surprising. If you look at last year, the Florida, how much they used the tight end, and Gamble played some, and Zipper played some, and they had a lot of promise coming into this year. There has been no use of the tight end at all this year for Florida. And if you remember before the year, Florida was going to use the tight end a lot, and Florida was going to go 2 backs in the backfield with Dameon Pierce and whoever, Pierce and Naquan Wright or Malik Davis, and Alex Bowman had a lot of hype out of fall camp, and Mullen never went to 2 backs in the backfield. I think he did very rarely at the beginning of the season, like in the first month, and I don't know, I guess it never turned into anything. Yeah. Sorry, boss. Yeah, I wasn't old enough to witness Danny Werfel. I was born in 98. I know that comment was from 20 minutes ago, but yeah. Shoot, if you want to feel old, I'm a teacher at a school, and there are juniors in high school right now that were born in 2005 and 2006 when Tebow first got to Florida. If you don't feel old. If you're an older guy and you don't, am I feeling old? That you can take that. Yeah, Cox has been playing well. Defense had a great game. Carter, the defensive line was getting after it. Carter went after the quarterback, Basilak. Cox had a good game. Antonio Valentin had a good game. And they stopped the run for the most part. They contained it mostly, but offense got to score more than 16 points. I'm trying to catch up on all your guys' comments. I apologize for being behind, as I've been got a little behind as I went off on a couple of runs. Okay, I like this comment here. Johnson. Urban did the best with Zook's recruits. Spurrier is an advisor. He always had a good QB room, so have him pick the QBs, and we don't have this dual threat crap. Yeah, it's easy to say as an outsider, and from everything that Spurrier had with quarterbacks and the success he had. But you don't want a guy that's not there every single day, to saying, hey, we should do this, hey, you should do that. Hey, start this guy. Hey, don't start this guy. And Spurrier, from what I hear, isn't he's not going to go out and recruit. Obviously, I mean, there's a reason why he's an ambassador. He does a show with Terry Norvell and Steve Russell on Tuesdays. He works, but he doesn't work. He's in retirement. It's the reason why he coached in that AAF league, the AFL. A couple years ago, because it wasn't a lot of work. It was just, the guys come in and, you drop a couple plays, you practice something small. You're not, it's not a 24/7 job. You're not scouting in the off season. You're not recruiting. You're not trying to get guys. But whatever it is, whoever the next guy is definitely going to have to fix the offense, and you would assume that roll with AR-15. Yeah, I like this from Seminole Firewater. FSU rebuilding 5-6 after starting 0-4. The same FSU team that lost to Jackson State, as opposed to Florida being 5-6 and having much higher expectations than that. Crazy how it all played out. Yeah. Who remember beginning of the year? Think about this from the state of Florida. Miami going into week 1, boy, we're gonna play with Alabama. We got De'Aaron King. Miami has a good team. Yada yada yada. We're gonna play with Alabama. Florida coming off the backdrop they had last year. How they started. Florida was every single Florida fan after the Alabama game was, well, all we got to do, we're not even going to think about Georgia. We're just going to go right past Georgia, and then we're going to play Alabama in the SEC title game, and it's going to be right there. All we got to do is just win. And so no one was talking about, Manny Diaz's coaching job and Dan Mullen, and it's in a complete 180. Mike Norvell was supposed to be the dude that was on the hot seat, which I thought was illegitimate from being year 1 and where FSU is, and COVID year, which I don't think should matter because you had no off season and et cetera. When Mullen is not going to be at Florida next year, many people that I've listened to that I trust say that Dan Mullen. Here's some other news. Most people say that they don't think Dan Mullen will coach the bowl game. Now, and this was before this week. This was like Monday, Tuesday. So Dan Mullen obviously is not going to be the guy at Florida going forward. Manny Diaz, I highly doubt will be at Miami, and Norvell's chilling when it was the complete opposite 10 weeks ago. Thanks for clarifying, Jet. Meyer was number 1 choice. Basically knew Meyer was going to be a hot shot guy. Zook had major issues. Yeah. Yeah. So then Vinci, I hope I'm saying that right. Da Vinci, he says the UAA the Bull Gators, which are the boosters for the Florida Gators, are on the same page now. Money talks. We'll get a big splash higher. We'll see. I'm not just gonna be one of these people that I'll wait and see what happens. Hopefully it happens because there's no excuse as to why they shouldn't. You're in a hotbed in the state of Florida. When schools like Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson are just taking planes and coming in and leaving the state of Florida with their guys. Again, Florida only has 4 recruits in the state of Florida in the top 50, only 4, and that's after a couple of guys have left, have decommitted from Florida in the last couple of weeks. It shouldn't be that hard. If you recruit your state. The reason why USC's in turmoil is because they can't recruit their own state. If you look around, Clemson starting quarterback, DJU, California. Bryce Young at Alabama, California. Spencer Rattler's from Vegas, I think, at Oklahoma. But out west, Ohio State's quarterback, CJ Stroud, California. Think about that. I don't agree with this. Cousin Eddie right here. No big-time coaches are coming to Florida in the shape it is in and go against Kirby and Georgia. I don't agree with that because whoever comes in, they can turn this around like that. Urban Meyer did it after Zook. Mullen did it with – think about how bad Florida's offense was with McElwain. McElwain had the players, and Mullen changed it like that. I don't think the players were as good as under McElwain, but it's not an issue. If you can get a guy that is passionate and that wants to recruit, there should be – you don't have to worry about anything. You're 90 minutes from Jacksonville. You're not far from IMG. You have all those guys in Miami. You can recruit against Miami, and look at all the talents coming out of Miami. The Jerry Jeudy, the Amari Cooper, the Tyson Campbell, the Patrick Surtain. I can go on and on. All of those guys should not be leaving the state, period. And if they don't go to Miami, those guys should be yours. I mean, you think about what Mullen did, or excuse me, not Mullen, what Urban Meyer did and staff when they went to Lakeland and they got the Pouncey twins and they got Ahmad Black and they got Chris Rainey. And then they went down south and got Major Wright. And then you got Tebow from Jacksonville. You had a huge pickup from Percy in Virginia. Who were a couple of those guys? Ryan Stamper from Jacksonville. I'm trying to think of where a couple. I can't remember where Joe Hayden and Jonas Jenkins went in high school. But just to give you a backdrop, all those are Florida guys. So as you try to keep up on your guys' comments, just make sure we're subscribing to the YouTube channel at the Voice of College Football and any channels that are around it, whether it's the Iowa channel, the Georgia channel, the Notre Dame has one, Virginia Tech has one. There's an SEC channel. Make sure we're subscribing to all of those channels and giving a thumbs up, and it is greatly appreciated. As Mark Rogers always has his YouTube show, and he talks about everything around the world of college football every Saturday night. I believe it starts at around 10 a.m. I'm trying to do a couple of housekeeping things here. But it was – I expected Florida to lose, but I didn't expect Florida to lose this way. I thought Florida was going to get run out of the building. I thought Florida with Missouri's running attack, I thought Missouri was going to do whatever it wanted to do against Florida, and it didn't really turn out that way until late in the game. And Missouri started picking up with Beatty late in the third quarter and then into the fourth quarter. But the offense was just Florida's offense is just lackluster. There's no confidence from Dan Mullen to Emory Jones. Clear as day, you can see what happened late in the first half. You have 1:04 left in the game. You're at your own 30, tie game with a chance to win, and you run the ball 3 times. That's pitiful. That shows you all the trust that Dan Mullen has in Emory Jones and in the entire offense. Because imagine, ask yourself this: if you trusted your guys, let's go here. Let's say, if you're Bryce Jones in Alabama, if you're Georgia, any Ohio State CJ Stroud, if you have the ball with 1:04 left, tie game with a minute to go, what are you doing? Let's roll. Let's slant flat. Let's hit some curls. Let's hit a deep man down the seam. Let's go win this game. And we went run, punt the ball. Mizzou gets the ball, take a knee, go to overtime. Well, we have a lot of comments coming. Okay, so Cousin Eddie again. Florida is going to be hiring its 5th coach in 15 years. Do you all realize no one wants to be part of this dumpster fire? Let me look this up. I want to be accurate before I say something that I don't. Before I go. Yes, Florida's team right now is in a dumpster fire, but that doesn't mean it can't be fixed. If Florida gets the right guy, every issue should be fixed. Like I said, with recruiting, and there shouldn't be any issue as to why Florida should not keep these guys in the state. Okay, so let's go. Let's do this. So I was going to say this. I was going to jump the gun, but I wanted to do some research. So Florida has their 5th coach in 15 years, and you cousin Eddie, you believe that Florida's a dumpster fire, and that no one wants to be part of this program. I disagree. I'll use this. Alabama. Alabama is one of the top programs like Florida in the country. Alabama, after Gene Stallings in '96, they went through Mike DeBose. They went through another coach. They went from Mike to Mike Prince. Excuse me, not Mike Prince. They went through 1, 2. They went from Shula and then Nick Saban. So they went from DeBose, Dennis, Shula, and then Saban. So Alabama at one point in time, from 97 to 2007, went through 4 coaches in the span of 10 years. And what changed? Alabama got the guy. Alabama got Nick Saban. And that didn't happen. Now, I'm not old enough to remember, but through those coaching changes, Alabama was not the top team to beat. Alabama wasn't like they were in the early 90s with Gene Stallings when they won the title in '92, or obviously when they were what they were with with Bear Bryant. All you need is the guy. You just need the right guy. And the right guy will hire the right staff. You're in the hotbed recruiting. You get the guys in the state. You keep them here. You don't leave. And you should be good. There's no reason to why Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson keep traveling hundreds of miles from where they are, coming to Florida, scooping up, and taking the vast majority of the guys in the state of Florida. Obviously, they're going to take some. But the pipeline has just – it's been insane in the state of Florida. Sorry about that, man. I'm just killing time here. As we're about an hour in. If you guys didn't see the beginning of the show, you can always watch it at any time. It's just archived at the Voice of College Football's YouTube channel and the SEC channel. As I'm trying to see if there's any other information on via the Twitter that I did not see. Mullen, I don't think he had a press conference after the game. If anybody doesn't know how Zoom works, when you join a Zoom link, you click it, and you're supposed to usually mute your mic. Apparently someone, I don't know who it was in the media, had a bunch of ambient sound on the TV. It was really loud. They weren't muting it. Mullen stood there for a minute and left. And the way things were, I don't really blame him. It seemed like Mullen had to hell with it. Whoa. Utah's up 28-0 over Oregon. Anywho, back to reality. So that was that. He's not I don't think he said anything. So remember last year, Dan Mullen, after Florida played Missouri, they had there was a scuffle, almost a brawl at halftime. Mullen's yelling at Missouri players and coaches, and then Mullen dresses like Darth Vader after the game. Administration didn't like that in Florida. Very weird because that's not really Mullen's personality. Anyway, that happens. And then after the game, Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz, if you know anything about him, has a really humorous personality like Lane Kiffin. And he's put on a hoodie and he said, "May the force be with you," something along those lines, which is very hilarious. And obviously taking a shot back at Dan Mullen. I'm trying to see if anything else has been said on via the Twitter, but Florida only wins 2 SEC games this year. Who would have thought after the Alabama game Well, I wonder what the Vegas odds would have been had Florida only won 2 games in SEC play. You only beat Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Florida was double-digit favorites and more than a touchdown favorite against Kentucky, against LSU, against South Carolina. And they were 7 and 9 point favorites depending when you got the line. Tonight, Florida loses all those games outright. Florida was a 35-point favorite against Samford. Samford obviously covered that spread, scoring 52. And the only reason Florida beat Tennessee was because they played them early in the year, and Florida was playing the way it was, and Tennessee wasn't rolling yet until pretty much after they played them. So this is pretty good. So this is why I checked Twitter during the show. Dan Mullen, I guess he was asked about Anthony Richardson, why he didn't play. This from Matt Baker on Twitter, Tampa Bay Times. Mullen says Anthony Richardson was banged up during practice, which limited him. Yeah. When Matt Hayes replies, he was jumping around on the sidelines the whole entire game. Yeah. Just call it the way it is, man. You don't want to play him? Cool. It is what it is. Oh boy. Yeah, I think he messed up. He messed up a little bit here, Andre. I think if Tennessee played Florida, Tennessee would roll Florida. I think Tennessee would have beaten Florida anytime from the LSU game on. If Tennessee was in the Florida schedule, Tennessee would have easily beaten Florida, my opinion. But yeah, it's been crazy to look at the as I'm looking at all your guys' comments coming through. It's been crazy how Florida went from, if you're the stock market, Florida was the good the company that's always been alive but just needed some some change. And then 18 you're going up New Year's 6, and 19 you're going up New Year's 6, and 2020 you're close to a playoff. And then the beginning of 21, you almost beat Alabama. You beat Tennessee handily. The way you're winning, you completely change your offense. You go from pass only in 2020, and then you go to run only. And then after the Tennessee game, it was the Richardson gets hurt against South Florida. Offense had no game plan. What at the time was Dan Mullen's worst game against Kentucky game plan wise. Florida comes, they beat Vanderbilt, whatever. Then the wheels fell apart against LSU defensively. Bye week, Georgia. It was 3-0 before the first half implosion. Anthony Richardson's first career start. That kind of was expected. Then there was a team meeting apparently. Mullen and the players had a big disagreement. Mullen stormed out. Mullen broke the podium. 5 days later, Florida goes up the road to Columbia, South Carolina. That game happens. Florida's team quit. Florida didn't want any business being there. Then Samford happens. Let me take that back. After South Carolina, Florida fires John Hevesy, offensive line coach. Florida fires Todd Grantham. You play Samford. Guys on the defense aren't lining up. Guys on defense, it's like the same defense with Coach Robinson, the linebackers coach. You give up 52. You give up 42 in the first half, most to an FCS opponent that Florida's ever – most points Florida's ever given up in the first half in the history of the Florida program since 1906. And then tonight, defense plays well. Offense can't do anything. Not taking shots down the field, and Mullen doesn't have any confidence whatsoever in Emory Jones. And that's how we've gotten to where we are. So let's do this. As I'm seeing your guys still come in with comments. Florida State next week. Both 5-6. What's at stake? Bowl game, the toilet bowl. Who will get a berth to the toilet bowl between Florida and Florida State? It'll be senior night or senior day. We'll see if that adds anything to Florida, but I mean, my goodness, when you've endured all those losses that Florida's had, you wonder how much is left in the tank with these players. When they, I mean, these players, they're on their phones all the time. They have rabbit ears. They know what's being said. And the only thing they're hearing is Dan Mullen, this and that. And it doesn't feel like, I mentioned this last week, even though you can say what you want about Will Muschamp, I want to say the same about McElwain. You can say what you want about Will Muschamp. Those dudes never quit on Muschamp. And if you remember when Muschamp first got fired, and even to like this day, all those players love Will Muschamp. Even during the 4-win season, when I'm not making an excuse, but Florida had a ton of injuries and it seemed like they couldn't catch a break. And they were season-ending injuries, with a lot of them being the top players. They would have never quit. Florida would have never had the South Carolina performance playing for Will Muschamp. That would have never happened 2 weeks ago. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where I think both sides need to move on. I think Dan Mullen needs to move on from Florida. And I think Florida needs to move on from Dan Mullen. $12 million is the buyout. The decision needs to be made after the Florida State game on that Sunday, because then you got to go out. You, number one, got to get a staff, and number two, you got to go out and hit the recruiting trail, because signing day is mid-December. I don't know what the day is. And Florida's recruiting class is pretty pitiful right now. Florida's behind Miami, and Florida has to compete not only with that Georgia and Alabama, but also A&M and also Ohio State schools that are coming into Florida, taking whoever they want, whether it be North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida, and just scooping them up and taking them off on a plane when those guys should be coming to Florida. And you can also use that, by the way, Florida's bringing their football-only facility, which will open up in a couple months. Because like Kirby Smart said, can't outcoach talent. Players win you games, and that's the bottom line. And Florida should be losing these games, but the reason Florida did not beat Georgia and have lost them the way they did, and the reason why, you can hang with Alabama with scheme-wise, but if you play them multiple times and you play teams up to that caliber, the 4 and 5 stars are always going to be those 3 and 4 stars, no matter what you draw up, no matter what scheme you have as a coach. Yeah, George, I agree with this. There's good coaches out there. When we got Meyer, he wasn't anybody. Yeah, Meyer was the up and coming guy at Utah. They just went undefeated. They just had Alex Smith. But it'll be interesting to what all the coaches, what the pool is like, because USC's open, LSU's open, TCU's open, Virginia Tech is open, Washington and Washington State will be open. So you have those, and then Lane Kiffin will be on the move more than likely. Mel Tucker's not going anywhere. He just locked up a massive deal. Or Mario Cristobal at Oregon, will he leave? They're trailing Utah 28-0 at half. So their chances at the playoff are pretty much done. And this is the thing with Cristobal. Mario Cristobal is at Oregon, which is pretty much with Nike that can do whatever it wants. You have to offer something better for Mario Cristobal than what he has at Oregon. And that's with a lot of coaches. You have to offer them something other than just, okay, you're getting paid, whatever, $7 million, we'll give you $9 million. You have to give him a better situation than what he's at before. And there's been a lot of talk, if he's up for consideration for the Florida job, but there's a lot of talk about him going to Miami. Miami is not better than Oregon in any aspect when it comes to facilities, when it comes to the student body with the boosters. Apparently, the boosters are really cheap there, and they don't want to pay big money for a guy. We'll see if that changes. But why would you leave Oregon when you have everything you want for Miami that doesn't have that? Now, Florida, I believe, is a better job than Oregon. Just the simple aspect of, one, your football only facility is going to be opened in a couple months. Two, recruiting in the state of Florida has been pitiful. Dan Mullen can't get anybody, and if you get just a little bit more, I mean, you shouldn't. I know I keep saying this over and over. There shouldn't be any reason to why you should not be getting these guys at IMG in Jacksonville and Tampa and South Florida. If you get some of those guys, again, if you're just joining us and you don't know, if you look at the top 50 guys in the state of Florida, the top 50 recruits in football, Florida has 4 in the class of 2022. Think about that. And signing day is a month away, and that's when about 75 to 80% of the main guys sign. So, and it's not going to change. If Dan Mullen, I know everybody wants Dan Mullen fired on this show, but if Dan Mullen stays and, you say, well, give him one more year, you're not going to change. Dan Mullen was the same guy at Mississippi State, and he's brought everything over to Florida. And people thought that when Mullen left Mississippi State and he came to Florida, that he was going to bring everything he had from Mississippi State over to Florida, and then Florida's program was going to elevate him to what he was better than at Mississippi State, and that hasn't been the case. He's been the same exact guy. He brought the same exact staff, no issue, but when your defense has had the worst defense since Woodrow Wilson was in office and we were fighting world wars in the 1940s, and you don't make a change after the 2020 season, when you know he's not going to be the guy to take you to the promised land and win you championships. Dan Mullen did not change there. And obviously, another thing, Mullen used all of McElwain's players. And since a lot of those McElwain players left and more of the guys that Mullen recruited in his 4th year have came in, you can develop all you want, but not taking a shot, but Trent Whittemore and Rick Wells and Weston are not guys that can compete against 5-star DBs against Alabama, against Georgia. It's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. You can't expect to you can win like that temporarily, but in the long haul, that's not going to work. That will not work if you want to develop a program. You can be a good team like Florida was last year, one season. That's a team. A program reloads. Alabama, they go through staff changes. They got rid of pretty much everybody last year. Everybody won the best position, whatever position they were, the best linebacker, the best lineman. Alabama won all those awards last year. Come back this year, and it's just plug and play. And you don't even know. There's been a tiny drop off, and this is the first time in like a while for Alabama. That's a program. As if you guys are just joining us, this is the Gators final report. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. That's my Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you care to follow me on the social world. I only usually post all my content on Twitter. when it comes to anything. But make sure we're subscribing to the Voice of College Football's YouTube channel with Mark Rogers. He'll be going live probably in about an hour or so. He'll have all call-ins and talk everything from the world of college football when it comes to Alabama. Oregon's trailing Utah big 28-0 with Dan Mullen. At Florida, I assume Virginia Tech's job is open with Justin Fuente. LSU, USC. UCLA beat USC today. I'm trying to think of the other games that happened today. Oklahoma nicely beat Iowa State, but all those channels, make sure you're subscribing, and also the SEC channel. Oh, this is interesting. Developing news on this episode of the Gators Final Report. So if you're unaware, if you're older and you don't understand how kids operate today, usually if you work with somebody or you're on a team, it's usually like in your bio, like so on Twitter, like if you go click someone's profile, it'll say, quarterback for Florida, and you'll say whatever you want. Apparently, this has just been made the rounds. Anthony Richardson has removed all things Gators from his Twitter profile. In other words, he's not happy. So that's interesting. I'm not making assumptions. I'm not saying it's in the portal, but that's something. That's something. Again, recruiting in state. You get a guy in Gainesville who the average person knows that Anthony Richardson is the better guy than Emory Jones. The season's lost. You got to build for the future, and you're still sticking with you're still sticking with Emory Jones and not Anthony Richardson. And why wouldn't you be pissed? And why wouldn't you want to go play for someone else? And if Anthony Richardson hits the transfer portal, Anthony Richardson's probably going to be the best player. That's definitely the best quarterback that's hit the portal. And every single team will take a jab and get a piece of him. Whew, boy, how about that? Boy, oh boy. Yeah. So, Florida's 2 wins in the SEC. I don't see any way Florida keeps Dan Mullen. I thought this after the South Carolina game. I wasn't one of those people that believed that it depends on his last 3 games, and if he does this and he does that. I didn't agree with that. I thought your mind was made up. And guys, I know I apologize if you guys have been with us, but if you're just joining us, Steve Spurrier yesterday on the show that on College Sports Day with Terry Norvell, who comes on this post-game show periodically. I'll try to get him on next week. Steve Spurrier said last week, and he wasn't asked about this. He just brought this up. And if you guys know anything about Spurrier, when he says something, there's a lot of validation to it, and he doesn't just blow smoke. Steve Spurrier said, nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody is talking about it. I think it depends on what happens in these next 2 games. That's Steve Spurrier. I would say the most famous, but Tebow probably is. Famous Florida player, coached Florida to what it is now, he's an ambassador at the University of Florida, has offices right by Scott Strickland and right by Dan Mullen. And he says nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody's talking about it, and I think it depends on what happens in these next 2 games. Basically saying he won't be there long. And if you guys know and have been around the Florida program, the former AD, Jeremy Foley, he said what needs to be done eventually must be done immediately. So I say that because Anthony Richardson has cleared everything from anything Gator on his Twitter profile. Kids usually do that when they're not happy. Obviously, it's still, the night of the game. I thought what was going to happen at worst if Mullen did stay. I thought Mullen would sit down with Richardson and Emory Jones, and I think he was going to talk with them and say, "Okay, here's the deal," and then he would lay out what he wants to do with the two quarterbacks. Because I thought midseason, before the Georgia game, before LSU, that both quarterbacks were not staying next year at Florida with the culture and the transfer portal. Now it looks like Dan Mullen, he won't be at Florida. So obviously, if Mullen, let's just say this hypothetically, if Mullen stays at Florida for another year, if Scott Strickland's one of the guys that says, it was a bad year, I don't agree with this, but it was a bad year for Florida, let's give him one more shot. How are you going to convince someone to come to your staff when you're pretty much on a 1-year contract and you have to bust your balls and coach well? Take that and know that you don't have top recruiting classes, and your fans and everybody have the expectation that you're expected to compete with Georgia when you don't have any of the guys that can compete with Georgia and Alabama and A&M, and I'll even throw Auburn in there. What coaching staff, what defensive coordinator, what O-line coach are you going to get that is really good at its job to come to Florida, knowing that a coach is on a short leash? Seriously. I mean, that's the thing. You have to think, if I'm a hot shot coordinator, would I go to Florida? If I'm I don't know, if I'm on Alabama staff, if I'm an assistant coordinator, if I'm at a group of 5 and I'm trying to get a job at a Power 5, if I'm in the SEC or if I'm at the Big 12 and I'm trying to get a better job, why would I go to Florida if I'm a coordinator when I know I don't have stability and I'll only be there for 1 year? Find alumni. Okay, so Florida has Kawan Ratliff. I mean, who's in the coaching world from Florida that who used to play at Florida that's in the coaching world right now that could coach at Florida right now? Geez, let me think. Anybody from the 90s? Most of the guys. Gus Scott coaches high school football. I think Jacquez Green coaches high school football. Okay, Kerwin Bell's one. Wouldn't be a head coach, but he could coach. Former player. I mean, throw it out. So you said find alumni, Gator Mike. What alumni would you what alumni for Florida is out there? So I don't know. The one thing about Florida though, in the last cycle, I mentioned this earlier. When Florida got Dan Mullen, it wasn't their first choice. They wanted Chip Kelly, and then he went out west, and then went Scott Frost, and then he went back home to Nebraska because it was expected that Mullen was going to take the Tennessee job. So I wonder who Florida will want. I wonder what Scott Strickland wants to do. I don't think, everybody's going to say Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin because they're offensive guys and they're, they run a cool offense. They're sexy, whatever. I don't think Scott Strickland would touch those guys because of the baggage they've had previously. Now, if it were me, I don't care. I'll take Lane Kiffin right now. If you look at what he's doing at Ole Miss, it took them 2 years. Look what Ole Miss's off defense was last year. They were up to par with Florida defensively, not that bad. And look what they did. Look what Ole Miss did to A&M last week. A&M was a hot shot team coming in. And A&M, they held A&M to like less than 20 points for like the whole game. I think they scored more than 20 like late in the game, but the game was already over. Yeah, John Gruden and Orgeron. Yeah, I don't see any of those guys. Again, that's baggage too. I don't think that, and it's not Strickland. I don't think the boosters want it either. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think. I mean, obviously Mel Tucker's not leaving. Mario Cristobal would be a guy, but I don't know if he wants to leave Oregon. And if he leaves Oregon, it would have to be the right situation. Because I mean, you have to think Oregon and Nike. I mean, you get anything you want with Nike, and whatever Oregon has, it has to be better at his next job. I keep seeing you guys say Tebow. I don't know. I couldn't. I don't know what Tebow's title would be. Obviously, he wouldn't be a coordinator or a. I don't know. I would not go in the situation that Florida's at right now. I would not, knowing what the position that Florida's in, needing someone to establish a culture, knowing that you have to recruit and bring dudes in, considered to what everybody else is doing right now. I would not go with the guy that has zero coaching experience and bring him on staff. And that's my opinion. I'm still looking through you guys' comments as we're about to wrap this up. This is the Gators final report. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. As boy, it was an ugly one. Not ugly in the way I think most people thought. I thought Missouri was pretty much going to manhandle Florida because I think Florida is pretty much done on the year. But I thought Missouri was going to run the ball at will and do what they wanted. They didn't really start doing that until late in the second half, like late third quarter. Dan Mullen Emory Jones is Dan Mullen's guy. He's not rolling with Anthony Richardson. Again, if you're just joining us, Anthony Richardson has taken away everything off of his Twitter page that is around Florida Gators, which means he's not happy. It's someone being emotional after a game, so we'll see if that changes. Over time. Anthony Richardson, a Gainesville native that I assume always wanted to play for Florida, but so you have those things. One more game. Florida still has a game next week against Florida State, and Florida State's trying to win that game. Florida State, I think they were up 17-0. Yeah, Florida State beat Boston College today on the road. So Florida State's 5-6. Florida's 5-6. Winner goes to a bowl. Winner doesn't. As a shame as that sounds. So what the rivalry between Florida and Florida State was in the 90s, competing for titles, and now they're competing for bowl games for a 500 record. But that's where it stands. It'll be senior day, so we'll see if that has anything to do with anything with the way the players play next week. And then I think the following day, that Sunday, Florida and Dan Mullen, if it's not already done, sign the dotted line, make a decision, split ways. I think both parties want to split. I don't think Dan Mullen wants to be a Florida. I don't think Florida wants Dan Mullen. And and then hit the recruiting trail, find a new coach, and it'll be musical chairs from there. USC, LSU, TCU, Virginia Tech, both Washingtons, and I'm sure a couple more. We'll be looking for new coaches, and then from there, what coaches will leave programs to take those jobs. So we shall see. As we're about to wrap it up, the Gators final report at the Voice of College Football with Mark Rogers. I am Dylan Denmark. Follow me on Twitter there at Dylan_Denmark. And that'll do it. Florida loses in overtime, 24-23. And well, if you didn't think so, and you didn't know how much, if you didn't think Florida was around and you didn't think Dan Mullen was going to stay at Florida, your mind's pretty made up at this point. Team doesn't really care. It's not a guy that really, I think his attitude's changed and doesn't want to be here anymore. And that's that. So with that, thank you guys for all the comments and questions for tonight. If you ever want to hop in, and we'll do this again next week. The game will end at 3:30, so I'll probably do this at 4 next Saturday. If you guys missed any of the beginning of the show, I talked about what Spurrier said and what everything that's happened to Florida with Dan Mullen, to how it has came to where they are. But it's always archived at the SEC and the Gator channel. For me, Dylan Denmark, you guys, thank you so much for watching. As we had a lot of people chime in for good reason, as you guys always have a lot to say after a Florida loss, and a lot of change is coming. So next week, Florida State, winner goes to the toilet bowl. For me, Dylan Denmark at the Voice of College Football. Subscribe, hit that like button, and do that to all the other channels as well. Have a good weekend, everybody. Peace.